This story begins with a yacht in the ocean on a sunny day with a beautiful view. We can hear Chris's narration about the ways of life. He believes that everything is a miracle, and everything that happens for us, and not to us. His mother had told him that life can be beautiful and amazing, but never that it can be difficult. As Chris watches over the yacht in the water with his binoculars, the scene cuts, and we see him being rushed to the emergency room. No one could believe what was happening to Chris, not even himself. He admits that he didn't believe that any good would come out of his situation. But in the end, it all worked out, just differently than anyone had thought. We are taken back in time to before Chris was born because he believes that's when the story started. Kids are playing football on the field in Cuba, and among them is a young Jorge. His team is losing, and he is called in the last minutes to save the game. He scores a goal but collapses right after it. Chris admits that he and Jorge could not have been more apart, as he was a kid from the US, and Jorge was Cuban royalty. Life had brought them together in a way no one could have ever imagined. Young Jorge is taken to a hospital where they operate on his lungs. After the operation is over, the doctor goes to see his parents. The operation had been a success, but he warns them that the disease is progressive, as they have removed the lower lobe of his left lung. The doctor tells them to prepare for the fact that their son won't make it to the age of 20, but Jorge's father doesn't believe him, as he was told that his son won't make it to an earlier age, previously. They are advised to make sure their son rests, as he doesn't have the lung capacity for sports activities. Jorge wakes up later in the night with his parents by his side. His father reassures him that they're there for him, and that he's going to be alright. He calls him a fighter, and Jorge smiles. Chris calls Jorge a fighter as well. He says that Jorge had treated every day as borrowed time. While Jorge is studying at Stanford, one day he receives a call from his father. His father asks him to go to Miami as soon as possible because the situation with Castro is unpredictable. Chris calls it a zoom-out moment for Jorge as life was happening to him. It is cut to the present, and we see Chris. He goes to his friend's house and drags him out of his room so they can play basketball. His friend doesn't want to drive him, but Chris tells him that he's not going to get a driver's license, so he has no choice but to take him places. They play a game of basketball on the court, and Chris pretends to pass out after he scores. His friends gather around him, worried, and ask him to stop playing. After some silence, Chris finally laughs and gets up. They get back to the game, but Chris's older brother tells Chris that he needs to take him home. Chris says that he will go home after the game, but his brother yells at him to get in the car. On the ride back home, Chris tries to have a conversation with his brother, but he seems not interested in talking with him. Chris gets home and greets his parents. His mother tells him that he can grab a sandwich on the table, and Chris goes for it. An open letter sits on the table, and it is from the university Chris is trying to get into. He asks his parents whether they've opened it, and his father tells him that he has. He has been rejected from the university, but his mother tells him that he has been accepted into Loyola, where he can be with his brother. Chris is disappointed as he won't be roommates with his friend John, so he decides to go to his room. On the way there, his father tells him that he should have worked harder, and that puts Chris in thought. Later on, his mother comes into his room and cuddles him. She reminds him that there's always a reason things don't work out, and believes that there's something for him in Loyola. She hands him the phone, and tells him that he should call his brother, and tell him that he is coming to Loyola, so Chris does as he's told. He admits that his mother was right as he had to believe that there is a bigger reason for everything. He says that Jorge had to do the same. Jorge had made it past his 20s, and even to his 30s. He sits in an airport and waits for his plane. A beautiful stewardess catches his attention, and she can't seem to take her eyes off of him, either. Jorge sits in his plane, ready for takeoff, when that same stewardess hands him his lunch menu. She notices that he is in distress and asks him whether it is his first time flying, to which he replies that it isn't, but he has anxiety every time he flies. After giving menus to everyone, the stewardess comes back and asks Jorge whether there's anything she can do to make the takeoff easier. He asks her whether she can hold his hand while they're taking off, and she brings him a badge with an airplane and puts it on his blazer. It is a small step toward getting him relaxed, but he begs her to sit with him after all. She sits down and asks for his name, in case she needs a medic, and he tells her that his name is Jorge. The stewardess asks him whether he's going to Puerto Rico for business or pleasure, and he tells her that he is going for business, but it's quickly turning into pleasure. He is traveling there for his rum business and is surprised to find out that the stewardess's favorite drink is rum. It is more than a coincidence that her favorite brand is Bolivar. She is surprised to find out that Jorge works for the company, but he grabs her hand roughly as they're about to take off. She tells him that he wastes no time, to which he answers that he doesn't have time to waste. When the plane lands, Jorge waits for her to come out. She does, and she's happy to see that he's made it out of the plane. He asks to see her again, and she writes her number on the back of the business card he gave her on the plane. Jorge is already in love with the woman, as he doesn't stop looking at the card, even while he's in a business meeting. His brother notices and asks what her name is, but Jorge tells him that she is the future Mrs. Bolivar. We see Chris in one of his lectures at college, and before the lecture finishes, the professor tells them about the grading. He gets lost in his thoughts but quickly snaps back, gets his things, and tries to leave. Down the stairs, he bumps into a girl and immediately gets lost in her eyes. He says he's sorry, and she excuses herself and takes a seat. He stands in the middle of the room looking at her and admiring her beauty. The professor notices him and asks whether he's in the class, to which he replies he is, but once he realizes that he's bluffing, he excuses himself and goes out. Chris makes sure to wave at the girl before he exits, and the girl waves back shyly. He meets with his brother and his friend after classes, and his brother's friend complains about his smelly roommate. After the friend leaves, Colin tells Chris that he looks dazed and asks him whether college is hard on him. Chris tells him that he had a vision after seeing the most beautiful girl in the world. Colin asks him to calm down as there will be plenty of girls in his college years, and even though Chris says he's right, he claims she's one of a kind. The second time Chris sees the girl is when he bumps into her in the college halls. She recognizes him immediately, and he can't believe that he's seeing her again. He takes a look at the flyers he had picked up, and she asks him what he thinks of them. It is a flyer for safety patrol, and its design of it makes it too scary. Chris tells her that it's too intense, and she agrees but wants people to know how serious it is. He understands completely but thinks that changing it could make it more approachable. He hands the flyers back and introduces himself. She does the same, and we find out that her name is Sam. Chris tells her that he wants to join, and she's more than happy to accept him as her first safety driver. He tells her that he can't drive, but she will help him learn. And until then, he will be her safety buddy right along. Chris flirts with her and calls her pretty before he heads to class, and she smiles while blushing. The love story of Jorge and Leslie is blossoming as it is for Chris and Sam. The second time Jorge and Leslie see each other is when he surprises her on the plane to Seattle. She is putting the bags above his head when she sees a familiar face. It is Jorge, of course. She asks him what he's doing there, and he tells her that he wants them to have more time, so they could talk. After the plane lands, Leslie and Jorge enjoy a cup of coffee in the lobby. Leslie says that she loves her family but they prefer to stay in their small town, and she just wanted to get out before she settled down. She can't believe that he's in front of her as she expected a call. He asks her whether she would have preferred if he called, and she tells him that she loves his sudden appearance. Redness can be seen on her face as she starts blushing, and she tells him to ask her something else before she starts blushing even more. He asks her whether she loves her job, and she says she does because it has brought her independence, and apart from that, she has visited many different places. Leslie checks the time and realizes that she has to go. Jorge gets up and starts coughing badly. She asks him whether he's good, and he lies and says that it's only dust. She kisses him on the cheek and hurries out. Chris goes to Leslie's room and sees her dancing with headphones on. He stands there for a while and watches Sam until she notices him. She laughs and tells him that she cleans her room as procrastination when she has to study. Chris jokes with her and asks whether she can clean his room, and she says she won't. A bright orange-colored shirt that Chris is wearing catches Sam's attention, and she compliments his outfit. He hands her the same shirt and says that it will be their safety buddy shirt. She laughs and calls him a nerd, and he says that he is. A phone call interrupts their conversation, so Chris reminds her to wear the shirt to their first safety buddy meeting before he leaves. He stands by her door and hears her talking to someone named Greg. She refers to Chris as some freshman, and that bugs Chris. Leslie gets her biggest surprise once she lands in Hawaii, in their resort, where all the plane staff is staying. Jorge can be seen with a drink in his hand. She is excited as she runs to greet him. There isn't enough time for them, so Jorge takes her to the beach immediately. He takes off his clothes so he can get into the water, and Leslie notices a big scar on his back. She doesn't say anything and gets in the water as well. They have fun, swim around, and even play games like little kids. After swimming, they sit down on their towels to dry off, and Leslie asks Jorge to tell her more about him. He talks about his rum business with his family and how they were forced to move to Puerto Rico when he was in college. Jorge loves traveling to Puerto Rico but says that working with his family is the only thing he's ever known. Family is really important for the both of them and they bond over it. Leslie says that she would love to have a big family with lots of babies, and Jorge jokes with her as he says that they have just met. They laugh about it, and Jorge starts coughing. Leslie tells him that she has noticed that he coughs a lot and asks him whether it has to do something with his scar. He says that he doesn't talk about it because he doesn't want to show his weakness to her. She tells him that he doesn't have to worry about that with her, and he says that he knows. He feels at ease when he's with her. After enjoying the waters, they head to a bar on the island. Leslie can't believe that the day is over and says that she has enjoyed it a lot. Jorge agrees and says that he doesn't want it to end. She feels close to him, and after learning about his condition, she worries about something happening to him. Jorge looks at her in adoration and calls her the sweetest peanut he's ever seen, giving her the nickname, My Peanut. He says that there's nothing she has to worry about and promises that they have a lot of time together. They kiss for the first time, and Jorge decides to make a romantic gesture as he goes to the band and sings a song for Leslie. Chris says that Jorge is a charming man and wishes he was just like that. We see Colin at a party, and he is talking with Chris on the phone. Chris tells him that he's not coming to the party as he has to work for the safety buddies that night. Colin assumes that he's ditching the party for Sam. but Chris tells him that she is the girl, meaning that she is the one he wants to marry. He can't explain what he feels about her, but he knows that she is special. After he says goodbye to his brother, he turns around and gets scared of Sam standing at the door. He didn't expect her there and asks her how long she's been standing, scared of the fact that she might have heard him talk about her. She says that she only heard him saying goodbye to his brother, so Chris relaxes. He notices her shirt and compliments her, but also notices that he is naked, so he asks her to leave. They sit around the campus, and Leslie hands him her iPod, so he can see her playlist. Chris inspects it and finds some songs he likes. Some of them are questionable and funny, but he doesn't judge her. He shows off his moves and how he dances to the song Crank That by Soulja Boy, but when he comes to a song named Fairy Tale Wedding, Sam takes the iPod out of his hand. Chris realizes that he has surpassed some childhood dreams, and she asks him to stop pretending like he's never had them. He asks her whether her boyfriend Brad knows about it, and she says that he isn't her boyfriend. After a moment of silence, she says that she doesn't know what they are, because he has a lot going on and she is finishing her senior year. They are keeping things casual, and Chris asks her whose idea it had been, because she is the one that has a wedding playlist. They lay down on the concrete, and that's when they get their first safety buddy call. They jump, excited to help the people, and Chris answers it. They pick up a drunk girl who has made the smart decision of calling them. But she ends up getting sick in the middle of the ride, so they stop and Chris helps her throw up. Once they get her back to the car, they get another call, and in a few minutes, there's another customer in their car. The guy thanks them for picking him up because his friends have bailed on him. Another girl calls for their service, and the car gets filled with customers. The drunken girl wakes up and says that she is hungry, so all of them agree to go and grab fast food. While everyone is eating their meal, Chris can't help but stare at Sam and appreciate how much she loves to help people. He tells her that her face lights up when she helps people and says that she has noticed him enjoying it as well. He smiles and asks her about the deciding factor in her creating the Safety Buddy project. She says that it was a personal matter for her. Her mother had almost passed away in a car accident when some guy hit her in the head with his vehicle. She was in a coma and no one knew whether she was going to make it, so Sam had prayed and made a deal with God. If her mother were to survive, she would do whatever she could to make sure people stayed safe. As time went by, Leslie and Jorge got closer, and the same goes for Sam and Chris. Chris says that it's beautiful to find something you're passionate about, especially a person you're into that lights you up, someone you would do anything for. Chris comes back home on his college break. He is sitting in the living room when his father comes to him. He asks him about his grades and warns him that he could be kicked out if he doesn't get them up. He also mentions the phone bill and says that if he continues like that, he will have no support from them. Chris tries to remind him that he has been in love once, but his father doesn't want to hear it. Jorge has already been through what Chris is going through, as we see the time his father had called him to talk in his office. He comes in, and his father asks him about the American girl. Jorge knows that he doesn't approve because she's American, but his father tells him that he doesn't think it is a good idea no matter what. Jorge gets upset and starts coughing. His father asks him whether she knows about his health, assuming that she doesn't. But Jorge tells him that she's fully aware. We see Jorge watching Leslie sleep peacefully on one of their romantic getaways. She wakes up slowly, and he tells her that he loves her. He wants them to spend more time together, and Leslie says she wishes they lived in the same city. Jorge shows Leslie a magic trick as he pulls an engagement ring behind her ear. Leslie can't believe it, but she remembers that his father doesn't approve. He tells her that it doesn't matter because he doesn't want to spend his life without her. Chris and Sam are studying together, and Chris is writing a letter back home. In the letter, he thanks them for giving him another chance at college and for believing in him. His parents read the letter together and realize that Sam has changed him for the better. Chris decides to finally take his driver's license test as he is seen in the waiting room with Sam. He fills the file and ticks the section for organ donor. Sam notices and asks him about it, but he says that he won't need them when he's gone. A guy on the counter calls out for Chris, but before he goes, he asks Sam to promise him that she will go on a date with him if he passes. Later on in the day, Sam and Chris go on a picnic he has decorated. Beautiful lit-up tree branches fall upon them as they lay and look at the stars. Sam compliments his efforts, and he says that they have a lot to celebrate, one of them being their first official date. Sam asks Chris what he's going to do about the future, and he says that he hasn't thought about the future. He likes living in the moment and doesn't want to think about what he has to do. Helping people is something that he loves, and he plans on working in that field. Chris's mom is a nurse, so he takes inspiration from her, but he doesn't believe that he has what it takes to be a good helper. Sam tells him that he is an amazing safety buddy, so there's no doubt he'll be a good helper. He thanks her and says that she will have to meet his parents when they come for the Easter break. She says that she will. As she gets closer to him, he leans in, and they have their first kiss. Easter time comes, and we can see that Chris's family has arrived as they play football on the campus. Sam and Chris's mom watch the men play, and she asks whether Sam can handle being with Chris. Sam says that there's nothing she has to worry about. When they finish the game, Chris takes out his driver's license and shows it to everyone. All of them congratulate him and joke about him being late. Their stay comes to an end, and we can see all of them saying their goodbyes. Chris hugs his mother, and she slips some money into his hand. His parents tell him that they love him and that they are proud of him before they leave. Once the car starts moving, Chris runs after it and asks them to come back, jokingly. It cuts to a beautiful jungle, where a beautiful wedding of Jorge and Leslie can be seen. They say their vows and kiss for the first time as husband and wife. They dance at their small, but beautiful wedding, surrounded by the people they love. After the wedding is over, Leslie and Jorge can be seen in their room. He pours her a glass of champagne and cheers for their marriage. She says that the wedding was bliss but feels sorry about his parents not coming. He asks her not to be, because he didn't want the drama either way. He tells her not to worry about when she meets them, because they will fall in love with her, the same way he fell in love with her. Leslie is swooped off her feet as Jorge brings her into the hotel room to start working on the babies. Chris and Sam's relationship is better as well, as they're now boyfriend and girlfriend. They sit in Chris's room along with his brother and John, and he asks Sam what her plans are after graduation. Sam says that she will get an internship, and Chris says that he is thinking about joining the fire department. Sam mentions traveling and Chris gets up as he demonstrates their trip and how they will swim in the blue ocean, but he suddenly falls to the ground. John tells them to ignore him as he does it often. Sam asks him to get up but Chris doesn't move. They get closer to him and realize that he isn't joking, so John goes to grab his car. The same scene from the beginning plays, and we see Chris being rushed to the emergency room. After being taken care of, Chris rests in his room, with everyone by his side. The doctor walks in and tells them that Chris had bleeding in the frontal lobe of the brain, but there's no sign of trauma, so he could have some type of aneurysm. Sam sits on Chris's bed and begs for him to wake up. She loves him and can't imagine her life without him. She holds his hand, and all of a sudden, she feels him grabbing back. He wakes up, and they gather around him. He says that he's never felt better. He talks about a dream where he had been a caterpillar trapped in a cocoon. He tried to get out but couldn't and felt stuck. When he heard Sam's voice, he started to see light, and that's when he woke up. Sam says that she's glad he woke up, and he says the same as he has something to ask her. Chris gets up, and it cuts to their wedding. Sam is in a beautiful dress, and Chris is in a handsome tuxedo. They say their vows and share a kiss as husband and wife. Their wedding is similar to Jorge and Leslie's, small but beautiful, surrounded by greenery. They go on their honeymoon, and just like Jorge and Leslie, they enjoy the ocean. They get to buy their first house, and Chris picks Sam up before they get in, the old traditional way. He sets her on the counter, and she tells him that there are many rooms to fill as they kiss. Even though their love stories are similar, Chris says that Jorge and Leslie had some painful differences, and we see Leslie crying by a baby crib. It all seems perfect as Chris comes home to tell his wife that he had gotten the job. She kisses and congratulates him. Chris says that he plans on making some changes around the house because he would be getting a big salary, and Sam suggests painting the walls first. Chris asks her what color she wants, and she tells him Daddy. He doesn't get it at first, but soon, he realizes that he's going to be a father. He can't believe it as tears fill his eyes. He hugs his wife and showers her with kisses. The painful difference between the pairs is that Jorge and Leslie can't have a baby. Their doctor tells them that she isn't optimistic about them having a baby due to their medical history. Leslie thanks her for her time, and both of them leave. They sit by the bench, both of them distressed, but Jorge tells her that it's his fault. He apologizes and says that it's his fault because he can't give her what he wants, which is a big family. She looks him in the eyes and says that he is her family, all that she wanted and needed. He is the best thing that has happened to her, and she would never change it. Chris and Sam prepare for when the baby comes by doing different baby activities, one of them being baby yoga. Jorge's health is deteriorating with his age, and everyone is noticing it. He is playing around the pool with his niece when he starts coughing uncontrollably. His mother and Leslie see him, and his mother asks her whether his health's getting worse. She says that they're trying to make the most of every moment. His mother hands her a necklace with a cross as something she can pray with. Aliento de Vida, or the Breath of Life, is the new yacht Jorge has purchased, and he takes his whole family to sea with it. While on the yacht, Jorge starts coughing uncontrollably, and Leslie suggests they go back to shore. He doesn't listen to her and goes to the front of it, where he ends up collapsing. His private doctor tells them that he has listed Jorge as a patient who needs a transplant, because, with the state of his lungs, he wouldn't be able to last even a month. Late in the night, Leslie is praying with the necklace Jorge's mother had given her. Jorge gets out of bed, and she goes to him. He sings her happy birthday in a whisper because that's as high as he's able to go, and she asks him to stop because her birthday is not in another month. He tells her that it's in case he dies, and she starts crying while hugging him tightly. A new life comes to the family of Sam and Chris, and they have a baby boy. We see their son's first birthday and the whole family around. The son opens the present, and it is a fire truck, just like the one his father works with. Luck seems to be on Jorge's side as he receives a call that a transplant is available for him the same night, right as he is about to write his will. Leslie tells him the good news, but he tells her that he has lived a long and good life and wants someone more deserving to have the heart. Leslie tells him that the transplant is his chance to breathe again, and if he doesn't fight for himself, he should fight for her. He agrees, and they get on a plane to the hospital. It reminds Leslie of the first time they met, and he says that he will feel a lot better if he held her hand. She calls him a charmer, and he says that it's most important that it worked on her. They arrive at the hospital and prepare him for the surgery. Leslie is by his side until they tell her that she isn't allowed, and before he goes in, he gives her his wedding ring, but she tells him that it will wait for him when he wakes up. Leslie cries but turns around as she doesn't want him to notice her. She sees a group of people in the lobby and asks the nurse about them. The nurse tells her that the people who are waiting are families of the ones waiting for transplants. Sam and her son are drawing in the living room when Chris walks in and tells them that he has been assigned lieutenant. They can't believe it, and their son can't hide his excitement. Sam kisses him and tells him how proud she is of him before she goes to prepare their son's bath. Chris picks his son up, and he says that he loves fire trucks. Chris's face drops when he lets his son down. He looks at the family pictures, and they all start disappearing. It's back to his narration again, and he tells us that things didn't go the way we saw, but it would have been nice if they did. Life had something else in store for Chris. We see him getting into a CAT scan, and he says that they have run every test they could on him. Everything was fine with him, but he had a leaking brain vessel. The doctor says they plan on draining some fluid from his brain to relieve the pressure. His father is confused as Chris looked perfectly healthy, but the doctor says that they will know his health situation the following morning. His father gets to him and says that he loves him. He asks Chris to put his hand into God's hand and trust him. The following morning comes, and the doctor asks the family to have a talk. She says that Chris's condition had deteriorated overnight, and it is clear that he is brain dead, but they will do one more test to determine it for sure. His whole family is devastated by the loss of their loved one. They all break down, feeling anger, sadness, and disbelief. Chris's oldest brother comes to see him, and his mother hands him Chris's driver's license, which says that he is an organ donor. He doesn't approve of them using his parts, but Sam tells him that's what he wanted. Everyone leaves the room and lets his brother talk to him alone. His brother admits that he isn't used to talking to him because Chris would usually be the one talking. He is sorry for always being pushy. He always nagged him to be better, to work more. But he says that he has done all of that because he loves him. Tears fall down his face as he says his last goodbye to Chris. He tells him that he loves him and that he's proud to have a brother like him. They sit down with the doctor once again, and she tells them that they've been able to find matches for many people. Chris's heart, liver, lungs, pancreas, kidneys, and eyes will save 5 lives. Chris's father asks whether they'll find out who the parts have been donated to, and the doctor tells them that they might get a letter or meet, but it is very unlikely as everything is confidential. They get out of the hospital and see all of Chris's friends and acquaintances. Chris's father thanks them for coming and asks them, before Chris falls asleep that night, to call someone they love and tell them. Jorge wakes up from the surgery in the morning. He cannot believe that he can breathe and asks whose lungs are in his. Leslie tells him that an angel's lungs have been placed in him. It cuts to Chris's funeral, and all of his friends and family can be seen around the casket. Sam gets up and puts a red rose on his casket. She promises that she will always love him. Jorge picks up a red rose and hands Leslie as she is talking to the doctor. The doctor calls Jorge a Superman as he is recovering very fast. Jorge asks the doctor who has given him another chance at life, and the doctor says that he cannot reveal any information, but will check with the agency and see what they can do. Jorge hugs him and the doctor laughs. A letter sits on the table in front of Chris's father, and he says that he doesn't want to read it because the name and address have been blacked out by the agency. His wife tells him that he should read it, and he does. In the letter, Jorge thanks them for giving him the greatest gift, which is the gift of life. He tells them he understands their great pain and sorrow. Chris's father shines his flashlight on the letter and recognizes what has been written under the blacked out parts. He calls his wife over and tells her that they have given Chris a name. It's Gabriel, like the angel of reincarnation and new life. They end up sending Jorge and Leslie a letter as well, and Jorge reads it. He tells Leslie that his savior had been a 19-year-old boy who was in love with a girl named Sam. Sam lost her love and his parents lost their son. Jorge is visibly shaken, and Leslie hugs him to calm him down. After some time, we see Sam with Chris's family in the car, and the car pulls into a driveway of an unknown house. When they get in, they are met by Jorge and Leslie. They start talking, and Sam can't help but put her head on Jorge's chest so she can hear Chris's lungs. She starts crying, and Jorge tells her that Chris is with him and promises to take good care of him. They all hug each other, and both sides are grateful to have found each other. The same scene plays from the beginning. We see both families on a yacht, but Chris is looking over them. He says that they can take his eyes, but when they're looking at some children playing, he will be smiling with them. They can take his heart, so they can love, but he'll know that his love remains in the world. They can take his lungs, so they can sing, but if you listen closely, he will be singing with them. Chris apologizes for not having more hugs to give or more jokes to tell, but he's tried to make people smile. When he's gone, he won't be around, but he'll be everywhere. On that yacht, both families enjoy having fun, and they know that Chris is watching over them. Gabriel House of Care was founded in 2011 by Jorge and Leslie as an expression of gratitude and in memory of Chris.